Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by one of my many mentors, my first mentor, Jason Christoff. Jason runs an international self-sabotage reprogramming institute. Used to call it a school, now it's a reprogramming institute. Interesting name change there, Jason. Jason's been a big influence on my life, given we're just talking about the last couple of years, and I actually only recently watched my first session back. So it's been an interesting journey since I found Jason, and it's been good that I've been able to interview him a couple of times now. So today's chat, who knows where we'll go. But Jason, for some of my new listeners might not know who you are. So if you want to introduce yourself and talk about maybe a little bit about your journey for some new listeners, and then we can have a chat.
Yeah, well, we'll start with my past year, which was pretty interesting. And I'll tell people how I got to the point where I'm invited to these events. But I was invited to speak at the European Parliament on the mind control and brainwashing used during the COVID operation. So after speaking at the EU Parliament, some other Parliament members from different countries started noticing and said, we would like your group to come and inform us and educate on us. So I was traveling with the International Crisis Summit team. It's called the ICS team. It's a team of 50 experts, mostly medical doctors and scientists. And my job is there to make basically mind control very easy to understand for the average person. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a scientist. I do have a university degree, but it's not in psychology or psychiatry or anything like this. So I was invited from Brussels, Belgium, at the EU Parliament. I was asked to speak at the Romanian Palace of the Parliament, this building. It's the second biggest building in the world. It was very impressive, to say the least. You're speaking in this area that's three stories tall without any ceilings. I mean, top ceiling on the fourth floor, but very large auditorium for Parliament members. And again, speaking on mind control, brainwashing, propaganda, psychological manipulation, and all of it having to do with that big question about why did so many people in 2020 up until 2024, why were they doing so many things that were illogical, didn't make any sense, and sometimes fatalistic? How do you get people to do that to themselves when none of it makes any sense? And then I was invited to the CPAC convention in Washington, D.C., which is basically the Republican convention at the Gaylord Hotel. And we had a breakout room, which means, don't confuse, I was not on the main stage. I was in a secondary room outside the main stage, but again, speaking on mind control, brainwashing, and psychological manipulation. And then I had sort of the honor of being invited. Out of the 50 people in my group, we all applied to speak at the US Senate in the Kennedy caucus room, with a committee hearing that was like headed by Senator Ron Johnson. And there's only 22 people picked out of the 50. I got picked. And so I had to present on the floor of the Kennedy caucus room in the US Senate. That was a big honor to be part of this group. Everybody there is giving their own opinion on what's really going on. But of course, I was part of 3 or 4 people in sort of a subgroup of speaking on these topics about the power of psychology, the weaponization of psychology. Now, where I learned all this is it's mostly self-taught, but I used to own a small chain of fitness clubs. And basically, I became a very high-end trainer, exercise nutrition coach in the original fitness club where I used to set up shop for myself personally. And I was certified by the Czech Institute in San Diego, California, with Paul Czech. This is the highest grade institute for health and wellness and holistic nutrition on the entire planet. So I was charging quite a bit, and my clients would pay and nothing would happen. They would basically come in, I would work them out. They wouldn't hold to their diets. They would basically if they made a little bit of headway, and I could see, I didn't know it at the time on an individual basis, but if you compared everybody that I was training, they all acted the same. And you know why? They were afraid to get in shape, afraid to be better, afraid to make a break to a better herd of human animal, afraid to sort of be thin in an overweight tribe. They're afraid to be successful in a mediocre tribe. This is what we found out later. And that's what happened. I phoned the Institute and said, I'm charging these people thousands of dollars, and they're basically terrified to get in shape. Has anybody else seen anything like this? Because they're out of shape. They're saying they go to my health facility and they say they're a client of mine, and they're as big and as out of shape as they were $6,000 ago. And they said, the people at the Institute said, yeah, this is very common, has to do with what's called mind viruses. They're sort of like a virus in the computer. They're infected. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, well, here's some books by these particular authors. Why don't you read some of them and start understanding that there's two minds in the human. There's basically an actor and there's a director. And the actor and the director sometimes want two completely different things, but the director is very powerful. And if you don't get the director of your movie on your side, well, then basically your environmental sort of imprints, or the majority of the beliefs or ideas or sort of behaviors that are held by the majority will dominate the director. And then you're not really going to be able to make headway with your own personal goals. So I figured this out really easy, started applying these techniques to my clients, getting direct access to this, what's called the subconscious mind pathway, and started really tinkering with how I trained my clients psychologically. And then I did it so well, put myself out of business as a coach, started doing it online, got so busy there, had to open that Reprogramming Institute where I take medical doctors, chiropractors, high-end health coaches, regular health coaches, and even members of the general public, and say, that let's work with these two parts of the brain and get them aligned so that you can get where you want. And then I found out you can do this with anything, not just eating well and going to the gym on time and following through on your health goals. It can be done with wealth. It can be done with relationships. It can make you stop masturbating if you want to. Whatever you really want to do, it's the same format for any goal. And unfortunately, I'm sure you've told your clients that this technology of sort of interfacing with this invisible part of the brain called the subconscious is actually being mastered, and was mastered a long time ago, by the people who masquerade as our government and our media. And they actually collude together to hack this part of the mind, not to make you thin and not to make you wealthy and not to make you stop masturbating, but to make you start masturbating and make you poor and make you overweight. So this is what I teach around the world, is how this part of the brain has its own functions and its own methods of basically manufacturing your behavior. And if you don't know anything about it, and trust me, the people ruling us know everything about it, but if you don't know, you are a sitting duck for this kind of manipulation, because this part of the brain actually thinks it's doing a good job. It actually loves you, wants to protect you. And it's that sort of love and protection process that the people who rule us take advantage of, and they completely screw us over to where we're just crawling along rock bottom, and the floor is covered in shard glass, and we still can't get up, because that's how powerful this part of the brain is. Especially if you don't know how to use it, it's going to throw you around like an 800-pound gorilla. It's going to ragdoll you.
100%. It's interesting that how does So if someone's listening to this and they don't know too much about it, how does one start to reprogram that part of the mind? We both obviously know the answer to that question, but there's someone out there that's a bit on the start of it. How does one go about starting that journey to delve into that part of the mind themselves? Or
Yeah, well, this one's really easy and it's really interesting. The first thing you got to know is how that part of the brain works. Because once you know how it works, you can see how they are screwing it over. And then you can also see how you can hack it as well to do better stuff with your life. Now, this part of the brain is not a malfunction. I guess that's lesson number one. That it's not making any mistakes. It loves you. It wants to cheer you on. And it's really there to make you safe and secure. Now, it's an invisible process. So I guess that's lesson number two. It goes on in all the time, 24 hours a day, in a way where you're not involved with it, but it's running it anyway. It's running those safety protocols anyway. The average person, I'm going to tell you, look, it's just like a cut healing. You see it healing, you see it going down, you're not involved though. And when you go to the bathroom, bowel movements, you can hold it a bit, but you're not really involved. Menstrual cycle, hair growing, heart beating. Please understand that you already know that there's parts of your system that you don't control that operate outside your conscious awareness. Please be aware that this process is in that category. It operates without you knowing. And again, it's just loving. It's just like a cut healing. A cut healing is protective because if it didn't, you could get gangrene, get the flesh-eating disease. I mean, all these processes are there to love you to a longer existence. And this one's exactly the same. So this one, how it protects you is it looks out through your eyes and listens through your ears. And it's like this rabid server at a restaurant taking orders. It's really writing down what's going on in the environment, what it hears, what it sees. And the reason it's writing everything down is it's looking for repetitive content. So what does repetitive content have to do with loving you to safety? Well, psychology is really simple. Humans, like other humans that act, talk, and think like they do, period. This is a safety protocol. It wants you to be safe, but it also knows, hey, I'm a human. I'm not very strong on my own. Humans are pack animals. They're herd-based animals. Well, the repetition by this part of the brain's deductive capability knows that the most repetitive content has to reflect what the bigger herd is saying, doing, thinking, or even wearing. Now, if you mimic that, if you copy that, if you emulate that, it's not a guarantee, but it's a good chance you'll blend in more and then you're safer. And this part of the body just pats itself on the back and says, job done. But the job done is sort of twofold. It writes down the repetitive content, and then it makes you act it out. Someone's like, whoa, 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 what do you mean? It makes me act it out. All outside your conscious awareness, which means you're not in control of your behavior like you think you are. And again, I'll give some examples like I always do. The famous one I always say, 2001, there's a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage. It's about car theft. Now, if you go do the research on this part of the brain and you sit someone in the cinema, this part of the brain's doing what it always does. It's looking for repetitive content. The average person would say, it's just a movie. Well, if you do the research, this part of the brain doesn't know that. This is why you jump in a scary movie. Your heart beat faster in a scary movie. Your palms sweat a bit. You're having the reaction like it's real. And this part of the brain's the same thing. It's real to this part of the brain. It thinks you're in a different tribe. It doesn't think you're in a cinema. It thinks you're in a different jungle environment. The repetitive content of this movie called Gone in 60 Seconds with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage, it's about car theft. And it was a typical weird, inverted script. There was a local thug trying to kill Nicolas Cage's brother. The thug remembers, yeah, that Nicolas Cage, He's a car thief, but he's retired, just got out of jail. So the thug says to Nicolas Cage, you're going to steal 100 cars from me tonight in 24 hours, or I'm going to whack your boy. I'm going to get rid, I'm going to kill your brother. So Nicolas Cage comes out of retirement, steals 100 cars. Okay, that's very repetitive. This part of the brain's proven it doesn't know the difference between real life screen time and imagined thought. And as you're sitting in the theater, the subconscious says, hey, man, we're in a car theft tribe here. And if you want to blend in here, maybe flash the gang signs of the tribe we're in. This is a car theft tribe. Now, when that movie came out in Burnaby, BC, Canada, car theft went up 70% in the first 4 days alone. This social contagion sort of documentation is recorded by this guy in Santa Clara University in California called Dr. Jerry Croth. He's on YouTube. You can check it. Croth is Kroth. And there's many other basically examples of this social contagion, because the people who rule you have a very simple phrase. What's on the screen at noon will be on the street at night. And whatever we want these people to do, we're just going to make sure they see it, whether it's on the TV screen, movie screen, print media, or they hear it. Maybe they'll watch it in the newspaper. Maybe they'll hear it on a different radio station. We're going to flood it. Now, not everybody basically stole a car. It was just a big increase, almost doubling the average car theft. But let me tell you something. If they locked those people in the theater for 3 weeks and made them watch the movie over and over again, there's a good chance 100% of people are going to steal cars. And this is really what happened in 2020. If people aren't putting this together in the way that it's weaponized against you, they send you home with 2 weeks to flatten the whatever. They know you're going to be watching the TV. Pick a station. They control them all. They know it's even better if you go between and see the different reference points, the different announcers, the different newscasts, all saying the same thing. It's all repetitive. They didn't send you home for any other reason to train you and drive it in for 2 weeks, because that 2-week period is being proven to anchor the programming. And then you're out. Then you're out of the house and you're interacting. And if someone comes up to you and you got some counterpoint or some counter evidence after 2 weeks of getting drowned in the subconscious mind pathway, you can't get out of it for the most part. And there's basically they stacked a whole bunch of these manipulations. Repetition is a big, big factor in controlling the behavior of people, even in something like Fast and the Furious.
Yep.
We got a movie and I went through the Fast and the Furious age. I'm 54. When I was like 28, I think Fast and Furious, just period. There was no 2 or 1. It was just Fast and the Furious. When it came out, everybody got their Honda Civic souped up. Everybody's got the neon lights. Everybody's got the muffler and the big rims on their car. Social contagion. What's on the screen is going to be on the street. And the average person saw, there's for cars, they can do it with anything.
Yep.
They can do it with absolutely anything they want. And they did that in 2020. Where everybody got the same content, everybody's out there stealing cars, but they weren't stealing cars in 2020, were they? They were doing something else way more dangerous than stealing cars, way more fatalistic than stealing cars. They wreck their own economies, they wreck their own lives, they wreck their own bodies, they wreck their own blood vessels, they wreck their own hearts, they wreck their own brains. This technology can be used and weaponized to make people do absolutely anything. And that's why this education is the most important. Even when I sat in the US Senate with Senator Ron Johnson, I had to tell him, The person next to me gave a speech about the heart attacks, you know, and the one next to me was about the strokes. And then the other one, you know, three down, he's talking about the miscarriages. The fourth one down is talking about the seizures. I even told Senator Johnson, no one would be here without mind control. No one.
Mm.
So it's very important to put this information in the proper priority as maybe the number one area where people have to educate. Because if you don't know this stuff, they can make you cut your own junk off. They can make you take yourself and blast yourself off the planet. They can even make it so powerful that you want to hurt yourself and blast yourself off the planet, that if I interfere with you, you'll kill me. That's how powerful this can be. They can make a ferocious rage, a hunger to destroy yourself, so ferocious with repetitive content that not only will you not be able to stop yourself, but if anybody wraps their arms around your legs and tries to stop you before you jump in the sacrificial volcano, you get mad at them and want to hurt them. Trust me, this is important stuff.
I agree, and it's not taught in the mainstream school system for this exact reason. Because if this was taught in the school system, you wouldn't be able to orchestrate and manipulate humanity the way they have for such a long time. And as we were saying off air, Jason, it goes way back, even before 2020. There's a historical component to this. There's a cycle happening. We are on a people farm, and it's time people actually start to realize what's going on around them rather than what's actually around them and inside them as well, to live better lives and to use this information to their benefit and become the best versions of themselves. And I've always said it too, Jason, a lot of people in our community, the freedom community, they know what's going on outside the world. This gets me passionate. I say it all the time. They know what's going on in the world, but then as soon as someone questions them about what's going on inside of them, don't want to go there. Don't want to go to that trauma. Don't want to go to that dark place. So they'll keep projecting their shit on, oh, it's Bill Gates' fault. Oh, it's Boris Johnson's fault. Oh, it's Scott Morrison's fault. Oh, it's the Trudeau's fault. Oh, it's this. It's like, when are they going to stand in the mirror and be like, some of this, most of this is probably my fault because I allowed it to happen. And then they refuse to start that inner journey. And I see it in our freedom community too. They're always projecting, and then they're in fear of the chemtrails. They're in fear of the second seal. They're in fear of all the stabbings. If people are a bit unaware, a lot of stabbings going on in Australia at the moment, part of the second seal.
Right.
It's interesting that they're in fear of all these things, but they're not looking themselves in the mirror and going, well, how can I be better? What can I do? What are my habits? What are my belief systems? What's going on inside of me that I'm projecting out into the world? What's your view on all of that?
Well, I mean, I'd like to talk a little bit about the knifings and stuff and let people know that this is part of what I'm talking about. When I said they would have different modalities beyond the repetitive content that work really good when you put them like a sandwich together.
Yeah.
One of this group, and it is an ancient group, and if people want to know how ancient this group is, they can go watch a documentary called Cult of the Medics. Cult of the Medics by David Whitehead will make sure you understand how old this group is. And this group has been doing things like, I'll give you one name, but this one name, just people will think it's about Italy, and they'll think about, where's this podcast going? Is it going on YouTube? Where's it going?
Well, your last one made it to YouTube, so we'll go.
Okay,
YouTube.
well, we're going to leave it there. I'll make sure it goes there.
Yeah.
So basically, a lot of people think this phrase is about Italy and the Italian government. It was something called Project Gladio. Now, it has to do with the knife thing. Trust me, I'll get there. The knifings in Australia have to do with Project Gladio, which is a project where the Italian government, I don't know what decade it was, but maybe 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. They were caught basically organizing attacks on the public to traumatize them purposely.
Yeah.
Trauma is a big part of mind control, huge part of it. Now, it wasn't just the Italian government. There's a guy called Oli Demigard. I don't know if you're aware of this guy.
I know who he is, yeah.
Oh, you know who this guy is. So I'm on an interview with this guy. We're getting interviewed together. I don't know who he is.
I'll listen
His
to
story
it.
was
We'll put it in the show notes,
his
Jason. Yeah.
his story was so insane to me. I do this for a living. I told the interviewer, stop talking to me and move all the questions over to him. And I'm going to become an interviewer too. I got some questions for this guy.
Yeah.
Now, again, I will connect this in about 4 minutes to what's going on in Australia and then tie the whole thing together. So he's talking about his dad, who, when he was a young boy, he finds out later his dad's an assassin. His dad's a killer. And his job as an assassin is a high-ranking, high management position working for Esso and basically the Rockefeller family who owns Esso. And I'm like, well, okay, well, this is getting really interesting. This is when I stopped talking in the interview and started listening. So it said his dad was in charge of basically setting up Esso stations, and the big expense was digging into the ground with the big backhoes and then, dumping in the big containers that hold the gasoline. But he found out later his dad would have an extra little container that would not be filled up with gas, that you could get to it sort of as secretly, was not filled with gas. It was empty. It was full of weapons, full of bombs, sniper rifles, ammunition. And he found out later that his dad was not only a paid assassin, basically a murderer. His job was, he was hired by the internal forces that teach us in the schools, that the internal forces are there to, keep us safe, hired to go around, shoot people in public squares, shoot people in the schoolyards, shoot people at grocery stores to get the trauma going. Because then when you have a traumatized public coast to coast with all these emergencies that this group is facilitating, then you start, this is a big part of mind control, is safety.
Yes.
Safe and effective, safe zones. In Canada, we have the safe drug supply. We have safe injection sites. We have rules at school to make sure that children are safe, but it's not about safety. It's a mind control trigger word that acts as bait for the frightened and traumatized human psyche. So what I'm trying to say is that where this is going is simple. There's knife attacks in Australia all the time. And basically you'll see it's knifing. They're going to try and extract the knives from the public and say it's safe and effective. This is the safest way to do it. We got to make the community safe. We got to make the shopping mall safe. Because again, when you see this group using the word safe or the word health, you better turn right around and get out of there. Because this group knows that these two words are the ultimate cheese in the mousetrap, the ultimate bait for the public that they scare the daylights out of on a regular basis. So when they want something to get done, they'll cause some sort of terrorized event over here. And then, so the human psyche's terrorized, and then the same group goes all the way around to the other side of the stage and says, come over here. This is where the safety is. It'll just cost a bit more of your freedoms, a bit more of your tax dollars, but it's worth it because you're going to feel safe again until the next week where they organize something else. So it's very important people understand these things. And like you said, looking into the darkness, doing the hero's journey, the average person has to understand, you at least have to question, like if you're watching the TV, number one, there's a documentary called Pseudology, The Art of Lying, that proves that your TV is not a TV. It's a documented military weapon designed to change your brainwave state from beta to alpha. Alpha is a hypnotic trance induction state, the exact same state, the brainwave state that they use on like a hypnotist show. And then the TV and the programming, called programming for a reason, they're going to drive in all the programming when you're in that alpha brainwave state, all the repetitive content that the subconscious is going to be looking for on a regular basis. But when you're in alpha, the conscious mind moves out of the way. So you have no ability to think about what's going on with your own programming. You're basically thinking it's entertainment, and that you don't need the conscious mind to judge right from wrong, fact from fiction. So the conscious mind is actually lulled to sleep. And anybody watching TV, it takes only 90 seconds, and the person is in this alpha hypnotic trance induction brainwave state. And so all of the purposely manufactured repetitive propaganda is going to go into the person's subconscious mind pathway. And then they're going to get up just like those people that were in the theater. And instead of stealing cars, they're going to do whatever that ruling group wants them to do that day. And that changes from time to time. They have the big meetings. Well, it's not a very big group, it's a small group. So they get, a small office tower, and they got the blackboards out, and it basically is, what do we want them to do now? And whatever they want them to do, sometimes on the chalkboard, it changes. But they have all the phones. The phones are the most important inside that boardroom. Phone the newspaper, phone the movies, phone the TV shows, phone the radio stations, phone the billboards. Everybody push that agenda all at once. And this is why they don't care if you go see Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Chris Tucker, Dwayne Johnson. They don't care, because the actor never carries the messages. It's the background. This part of the brain is obsessed with the background images, the background noises, and sometimes even, maybe what the main actor is wearing, or maybe what they're saying. But the majority of the repetitive content that programs the person when they're in the theater or in front of the TV is always littered in the background. And there's so many good examples on this effect that we play as self-sabotage coaches, which is basically a psychological reprogramming expert. First, we got to tell you how it works. Then we got to tell you how to reprogram. That's what you and I do for a living. So it's really important people understand this, is that their TV, their movie screen, their radio, have you not noticed that every radio show, there's no radio shows in your car that teach you anything about this? There's no nutrition radio shows. There's no exercise radio shows. Every radio show that you can get for free inside your car is 24 hours, back to front, up to down, liarrhea, repetitive content, liarrhea, controlled, manufactured, and orchestrated by the ruling group to knock you down, to make you run east looking for a sunset, rearrange the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, think black is white, up is down, left is right. That's exactly what they want you to do, because if you believe lies is truth, like if you believe the hot stove element cools your skin, that's a lie. And if you believe it and keep going back over and over again, eventually you're going to lose your hand. They want you to lose your hand. They make sure that the lies are repetitive. They make sure that the truth is not repetitive. This part of the brain, which is trying to love you, just doing its job, will live out the lies over and over and over again, not because they're true, but because it's the most repetitive content in your environment. You'll even think poisons heal. Poisons make me more resistant to disease. Poison makes me more immune. It's a lie. And in this part of the brain has been proven, it doesn't care about the truth. If fitting in with the repetitive content kills you on the spot, that's what it's designed to do. It doesn't care if you live or not. That's up to you to override this program. It doesn't care if you're happy, overweight, addicted. It doesn't care if you die a painful premature death. Its only job is to make you fit in with group, make you sort of take in the repetitive content of your own. And if by doing that you die early, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's up for you to understand you better be the one in control of the repetitive content, which is what you do as a coach, Nathan, right? You teach people about this part of the brain, teach them how to hijack it to your advantage, because they've actually tried to tinker with it many millions of different ways. Like the research on this part of the brain is the most frequent research in all the scientific forum, period. They've tried to change behavior millions of different ways. They can. Repetitive content, they have another weapon. Poison really upgrades repetitive content. We'll talk about that later. But poison and repetitive content, this is their two big weapons. So basically you have to take the poison away to gather your brain function back. And then you got to control the repetitive content. And if you don't, they will. There's no door number 3. It's either you stare into their hypno-programming box, you listen to their hypno-programming radio, you read their hypno-programming magazines. That will always drive you bankrupt, out of shape, and mentally insane, and make you a slave. Or you can control your own content and you can develop the 5 pillars of strength, which is what we teach as self-sabotage coaches. We teach the physical pillar as the foundational pillar to build the other 4 pillars upon. We teach emotional strength, intellectual strength, spiritual strength, and of course, financial strength, because someone who's strong obviously has to have a bit of disposable income to execute their magic when the need arises. So these are the only 2 options. So I hope people got a little bit from that rant. I hope that's what we're supposed to talk about today.
Nothing like a good Jason Christoff rant. I'm glad I got one on my podcast. It's good.
Awesome.
You have to say too much at all. But what I will add to that is, though, that, you know, they believe the lies are truths, but then they believe their own lies as truth as well from back when they were childhood. So there's like another layer to it. It's like you can believe like the lies that are out there, but then it's always forcing you, or not forcing you, but showing you to go inward and then unpack that hero's journey of like, where am I lying to myself? Like, what's this story I have? Like the one you helped me shift with my writing ability. It's like I had that story as a kid from when a teacher said I shouldn't be writing about the things I was writing about. That was my story. That was my belief system that my writing's not worthy. You just changed it in a matter of like seconds and I was off and running. Like that's how quick this can be on a sort of personal journey as well, that we can actually, like some of the stuff we picked up is from childhood and they're someone else's belief system. Someone else has put that there. And it's asking yourself that question, is that mine? Did that come from me? Or was that someone else's? Was it the group? Was it the TV? Was it the radio? Was it his teacher at school? Like there's so many layers to this, isn't there, Jason?
Yeah, and the good thing is it's all about just asking questions.
Yeah.
You never think that us as coaches are perfect, far from perfect. I was the most prolific self-saboteur in my town for a decade.
Same here.
I mean, and I would be saying doing lines of cocaine. I don't do any of that anymore because I know the thing is it's not about just quitting the addiction.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to quit. And I wasn't really addicted to any of this stuff. I just really enjoyed cocaine compared to alcohol, but I drank too. And because it was a painkiller. So as I was doing the cocaine, the bravery comes in the middle of the high, where you ask yourself, why in the F am I doing this? Why am I spending money to kill myself? Do you realize you could die at any time because your heart's beating so fast? And every line of cocaine will drain nutrition, because it's a poison, from the body. So I would ask myself, why am I doing this? And then you would have to, and this is while I'm high. This is where the hero's journey really starts, is to deal with the addiction in the addiction as you're doing the addiction.
100%.
That's the real bravery of like where is this going? Why am I really doing this? Is it because because I had a painful childhood? Now, if I did have a painful childhood, I guess the cocaine might take the pain away. These are all sort of internal dialogue that a brave person would have. And then if you did have a hard childhood and you're not sort of capable enough to deal with the pain, does that mean you're a weak person? And could you even be a stronger person if you put down the cocaine and dealt with the pain? And 20 other questions, and 30 other questions, and 40 other questions as I'm high, as I'm doing drugs, as I'm drinking, as I'm, basically fraternizing with people I shouldn't be hanging around with, as I'm breaking the law, as I'm wrecking my life, as I'm wrecking my relationship, question after question after question after question.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who's out there right now. If they're addicted, don't worry about it. There's reasons we're addicted, but you got to be brave enough to ask the questions to find the reasons. And then you have to understand some basic truths, as you are probably afraid to be your best because you're surrounded by mediocre influences, whether it's people, media, music, and you lack beauty in your life. You lack enjoyment in your life. You lack clarity, focus, inspiration. You want to get beauty around your life or get beauty around you while you're high. It's completely okay. Go to Vienna. Go to a sort of a city center where the grandeur will make you feel small, happy, and in complete delight at the same time. I found so much beauty when I went to Vienna. I couldn't believe the town. I was already cured of most of my addictions when I went there.
I've been there too.
Maybe not the work addiction, which I
Mm.
find, has the benefits for the world and myself at the same time. But the fact is, if you're broken, you're working as designed. I will tell you, if you're out there, that you live in a mental asylum. If you're still standing, you're really strong. But there's more to you than just maintaining the status quo inside the mental ward. You can be better. You can help other people. You can be a beacon of light. You can be a leadership. You can be like a radio broadcast tower of positive vibration, help people without even opening your mouth. And the key to experiencing the best of yourself is understanding this very small area of knowledge, where your behavior comes from. If you don't like it, how do you change it? Why are you afraid to be your best? Why is it intimidating to walk into a room of mediocre people at a higher level? Because we're pack animals. So, and just because it's intimidating and just because you'll get more friends if you're mediocre, it's still not a good enough reason to walk the left-hand path and dull your shine so that the majority likes you. The majority's miserable. You don't want to be in there. It's fake safety. There's no safety in being mediocre. There's no safety in being below average. There's no safety dulling your shine, because you're going to be overweight, sick with no cash. Now, if you'll feel safer, because that sort of moronic 800-pound gorilla subconscious is like, yeah, I did my job. Pat on the back, I'm fitting in. This is all I'm programmed to do. I'm just like everybody else. I feel totally safe. It's fake safety. It used to work really good 5,000, 6,000, maybe 10,000 years ago in the jungle, where you mimicked everybody in your small tribe and they liked you because you had all the same customs and rituals. That's when this system of protection worked really good. But you take the human body that's meant to sort of mimic the natural environment, put it in a city where there's all these artificial inverted stimuli and environmental imprints, and they're all designed to make you a loser, like really make you a loser, make you overweight, hedonistic, you know, definitely mediocre, uneducated, make you the bumbling fool. You know, they could make you do anything, right? They inject your lips and, you know, put some plastic in your bum, in your gluteus to make your bum better. Like they could make you do, they could make you cut your own head off if they wanted to. It'd be pretty easy.
Mhm.
So you really have to understand how this technology operates, how it's being weaponized against you, how to protect yourself from it, and what you need to do to be the best version of yourself possible, which is really easy. Control your content, control what you hear, control what you see, so that, and it, like you want to be wealthy, make it all wealthy stuff. But if you think, you know, if you haven't got there yet and you think abundance is still really crazy for you, maybe you just want a better relationship. You'll have to drown yourself in that content
Mm.
to get a better relationship. Maybe you want health podcasts, health documentaries, healthy books, working out, exercising, eating right, anything in that area, you'll just skyrocket there right away. And don't drown yourself in good content and then go put the TV back on. Don't go watch Bad Moms for the fourth time. Don't go watch How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days with Matthew McConaughey for the sixth time. Don't go watch Forrest Gump. Don't go watch Dirty Grandpa, because this part of the brain is always writing down what tribe you're in. And if you watch Dirty Grandpa with Zac Efron and Robert De Niro, you're going to be putting all the negative content in this part of the brain. Its job is to live that out.
Yes.
You don't want to be living out that content.
100%. And
Yeah.
it's so it can be so easy. And a lot of people out there will be like, well, you know, saying stuff like it's a harder path to walk to face myself. It's a harder path to walk to realize the truth. Well, I believe and we believe that the harder path to walk is actually the path that people are unconsciously walking. That's the harder path to walk because it brings pain, it brings misery, it brings all these things. Whereas if you walk that other path and come over here, the whole world lights up. Your world lights up. People around you's world lights up. You're like, as you said, a beacon of light. Isn't that yeah, you're facing yourself and you're going to have a few tears and a few things. You start to realize some stuff, but it's at the end of the day, it's actually the easier path to walk, isn't it?
I've done both paths.
Yeah, same.
And I tell you, I was always blessed with the abundance thing, even when I was with all the self-abusive aspects. I still had a successful business, trying to wreck it as fast as I could, of course, with the addictions. But I walked both paths.
Mm.
And I will tell people that I'll never go back, never ever go back, even if I'm surrounded by, even if I'm the only person eating healthy in a female camp, which might
Mm.
even be impossible. But I'll never go back because it's so painful.
Yeah.
It's so painful to be mediocre, so painful to be addicted. It's so the headaches, the
Yeah.
explosive diarrhea, the gas,
Yeah.
you know, the cavities, the everything, nothing works. Nothing in your body works the way it's supposed to work. And my hips and my joints and my knees, I mean, at 29 years old, I was actually needed help walking up the stairs in my own fitness club because my back and my hips hurt so much. That's how unhealthy I am. I'm 54 today. I'm playing tennis, running all over the place because I don't abuse myself anymore. And no, I don't dye my beard. I don't dye my hair. My natural everything. And I live in Mexico. It's my natural skin color. I don't go to the solarium or whatever they call it up in Australia. I don't go to the suntan booth. It's just better. And it's not only better for me, I get along better with my former wife. I get along better with my daughter. I get along better with my new partner. I get along better with my employees. I get along better with my coaches at my school. Anybody that interacts with me gets the best of me.
Yeah.
I'm totally, I mean, I'm not completely mentally stable because, yeah, we're all trauma victims in one way or another. We live on a mental asylum. So I'm a trauma victim too. But with a clean mind and clean body, I can really focus And I can really watch myself if I'm just getting off the right-hand path a bit. The right-hand path is the path of righteousness, morality, ethics, and justice. And you better, like, you can walk right in the middle of it. It's really hard, but if your mind is sharp and your spirit is sharp, you can smell and feel when you're off the path and you're getting
You can.
drawn into the crowd. So I really hug tight to that right-hand path in life. And the rewards have been beyond my comprehension. Getting rid of the addictions, eating healthy, going to bed on time, clean water, all these rituals, ceremonies, and customs of health and betterment every single day, controlling all the repetitive content. My life has exploded. I've never had so much abundance in my life as I have right now. And
Yeah.
that's only because I learned this information.
And I second that too. Like since our session 2.5 years ago, I can second what you just said. As interviewing you, like I can second that. Like my life has only gotten better since I just I can second that. That's all I can that's all I can really say there. It's like it's
Oh
such a
yeah,
beautiful
and
thing, isn't it?
I mean, I wish the world was a little, I mean, the world seems to be falling apart around me, but
Yeah.
I know, okay, if it is, it's even more important. It's not even an
Yeah.
option, it's an obligation now for me to be my best. Maybe I'll influence someone else. Maybe, my physique at 54 will influence someone else to take care of themselves. Maybe I can help someone start a business. Maybe I can show them that working 14 hours a day on your dreams, or your dream that you have for the world, isn't going to exhaust you because you don't pollute yourself. I don't drink. I don't. Totally limit my caffeine. I'll have a chocolate dessert maybe once every 2 weeks. But no, I don't drink the coffees. I don't drink the alcohol. Don't eat junk food. I don't watch TV unless I'm going to analyze a movie, which I did about three. I didn't even get through it. It was only 10 minutes. It was so violent. I just had to write the little review. It was too violent to watch. And the guy I was reviewing it with was funny because he only watched 10 minutes of it as well. That was pretty funny. It's the same show. But it's important to just understand that these little incremental differences, like even when I used to do the cocaine and the steroids, which I didn't mention, and the alcohol and the junk food, I did have a pretty good business, and I was, acting out all the movies. I got my personality from the spinner rack of Hollywood movies and TV shows. I wanted to be this guy and that guy. I wanted to be Scarface. I was on the cocaine. I would spend $35,000 a year, tax, after tax, clear on steroids, cocaine, alcohol, junk food, and fraternizing with people I should not be hanging around with. So here's the funny part. Even if someone is maxed with their budget and maxed with their time, so was I. That was my budget. And I didn't have any extra money to go maybe do some courses because I was investing. My debt budget was huge. My life budget and abundance and success budget was pretty small. So all I did was stop hurting myself. So I got 35,000, I got paid $35,000 a year to stop hurting myself. And I'd had all the time in the world because I wasn't going out, and basically I'm not wasting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had 3 days to pursue my dreams. So there's my extra time. There's extra money. I did that 20 years ago. That's $700,000. I'm going to tell you today, I have that $700,000 because I wasn't going to waste it on anything else. And so the budget for people to be their best is usually still there, invisibly, in the budget they're using to kill themselves. And I did this with one lady. We just started taking away what she was doing to kill herself. And we managed to pull about an extra 18 grand a year out of her. In her first year, we saved her $18,000. Like it was her cell phone. We got down to the minimum plan. We canceled her Netflix. She quit coffee. She's drinking one every morning. She didn't go on a vacation that year. She spent $3,500 to get her best website going. And then the very next year, their first year in business, she put about $40,000 to $45,000 in her pocket because of what she did on her website. And her website only costed $3,500. She still had about $14,500 left of the $18,000 savings that she had. There's ways to do this. There's ways to get ahead. But again, when she took away most of her alcohol, she took away her coffee, she took away her cigarettes, that left her bare to the world. She really liked that bubble of tranquilization and sedation that those narcotics afforded her. So not only did she get healthier, she got stronger, she got more adult-like. Because instead of running from the world and believing or feeling that her shitty life was good because she couldn't feel it, she ripped off all the sedative compounds, had to go face first into her shitty life.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people live shitty lives sedated. That's a very different life than living the life of your dreams.
100%.
Living a shitty life high is different than living a good life in a healthy way. And people who live their lives high, believing like coffee can make anything, any job, any relationship feel euphoric. That's why they make sure you have the coffee before you go. Caffeine gives a euphoria to shitty existences. Alcohol depresses the nervous system when you get home, so it's still sort of the same cycle. You're in the same cycle. You're being bled of your value, your energy. Everything that makes you human is getting bled away, but you can't feel it because you're whacked out on caffeine. You're whacked out on sugar. You're whacked out on wheat, and then you're whacked out on wine at night. And it's been proven in psychology, for you to even mature from a child to an adult, you have to face the world unsedated, untranquilized, and undistracted. And if you have pain, you have to feel it. You have failure, you have to feel it. If you have discomfort, you have to feel it. Caffeine, alcohol, sugar, wheat, vaping, marijuana, all that stuff, pornography, it doesn't allow you to feel your life in its true shittiness.
Yep.
And that's how you have to get ahead. That's the only pathway in psychology that a person can take to engage the maturation process as it's known. And people avoid the pain like it's a goblin. It's a guardian. Face your pain. Your life will always be better. And your pocketbook will thank you too.
100%. It's an awesome way to sort of wrap it all up, really, isn't it? Like we could talk for hours about this stuff, but there was a couple more questions I did have for you, and one of them was you wrote a beautiful blog about how you met Christine. Like that's an awesome story. I know I've sort of put you on the spot there, but I reckon that was
Yeah,
great.
it's okay. It's one of my most well-read articles on my website. I
I
can't
read it and I was
remember.
like, it's like even if you're in the depths of your shittiness or you're where sort of like me, for me, I'm single. It's like, well, you know, I'm just gonna be honest with you. There's hope for anyone, really. Like that was just a really awesome blog that you wrote. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thanks, brother. It's a great story. If anybody wants that blog, to read that article, they just email me at
Yep.
info@jchristoff.com. Single initial J, Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. And if you want that article, just email and say, I would like to read the article where how Jason met his partner, Christine.
And that's the journey, wasn't it? Like you obviously went through what you went through, talking about your previous relationship. You were not even looking for something like that, and it just at an event you got invited to speak at too, which was the Anarchapulco, wasn't it?
Yeah, I spoke in 2020. I can't remember. Yeah, I spoke in 2020. This was in 2022 when I went back as a participant. And no, I wasn't looking at all. And she's definitely not my type. So I was not looking in her direction. And she thought I was a cocky, as she said, a short, cocky American. She's European. So in Latvia, they have the tallest women in the world, right? So I'm 5'10". it's average height at its best, but she's used to dating taller men than me. So she just looked at me and said, not in a million years. I looked at her and said, not in a million years. But we ended up talking the whole time. It was just, it didn't break the ice, but because I wasn't interested in her and she wasn't really interested in me, there's no awkwardness in the conversations
Yeah.
whatsoever, because it doesn't really matter, does it?
No,
And then I'm still with her. Yeah, right now I'm going to the EU to be with her for the whole summer.
that's
Next
awesome. See, there's hope for anyone out there, right? It can just be something so simple. And
Yeah,
that's the work
it
we
was
do
good.
too, is we help people rediscover themselves so that then something like that can happen. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, you want to be your best. I mean, it's good to come in. I mean, I train every day like I'm going to the Olympics.
Same.
Because I eat like I'm going to the Olympics. I lift like I'm going to the Olympics. I sleep like I'm going to the Olympics. People are like, what are you training for? I'm like, I'm training for my best life. I'm
Yeah.
training to be the best partner. I want to be the best speaker when I get invited to all these big talks. I want to show up. I want to look good in my suit. I don't want my stomach to hang out over my new suit. Like I just train like I'm going I'm going for the gold medal, but I'm
Same.
just going to live my best life, give it my best go. And it's just a great philosophy to have. Run your life like a business and run
Yep.
it like you're training for the Olympics.
That's 100%. And that's awesome advice. And if someone is out there watching all of this, Jason, and they sort of in that shittiness or they're a bit stuck and stuff, what would be your advice to that person to start to break free?
Oh, don't worry. If you're having a hard time, it's not you, it's them. And when I say them, I've talked about them quite a bit in this podcast. But so your work is designed, like if you're having a hard time, they put it into you.
Mm,
You can put something else into you too. They know how to knock you down and make you afraid of public speaking and make you afraid to do better, make you afraid to start a business, make you afraid to be in shape and an out of shape tribe. They're masters of it. So if you're having a hard time, don't worry, your working is designed. Your first step is always to be like the 5 pillar strength system that myself and Nathan teach. The first pillar that you have to, don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about your addictions. Don't worry about your watching actors on Netflix stab and shoot each other and getting all the bad programming. Don't worry about that stuff. You got to get your body and brain ready for the big show.
yeah.
Okay, well, the big show is going to be the show of change in your own life. So your physical pillar of strength will clean up your body. It'll also clean up your mind. It'll change your brain function from, say, alpha brainwave state back to beta, which is your smartest brainwave state. You can figure everything all out. You can make a real go for it up Success Mountain. So your physical pillar of strength is the most important. Can't really go beyond that until that's strong and fortified and thick.
Yeah.
So what you want is maybe Paul Chek's book. There's this guy called Paul Chek, Chek. It's a thin book. He's the #1 health guru in the world, in my opinion. Easy to read book. It's called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And so start reading that. Even if you're addicted and high and you're drinking coffee and, drunk, just start reading it. It'll get in there. Your life will change, and then you'll start doing what I did when, say, I quit alcohol. I used to drink 15 martinis a night, not every night. I would only go out once a week. I drink 15 martinis, 12 to 15, and then I went like every 2 weeks. And then I'd go every 2 weeks, but it'd be like 8 martinis. Then I go every 2 weeks, maybe 6 martinis. Then it was like once every 3 weeks. And it took me 2.5 years to quit alcohol in that slope, right? Like this downward slope. And then every step of the way, my body was high-fiving me. Like
Yeah.
it's a total victory. It took me 2.5 years, but I got there. I mean, today, some people might not have 2.5 years to get life together, but it doesn't matter. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. Stop judging yourself. You'll they'll be like this as you go down, but you'll see if you look back over the year and see how far you've come, you're like, wow, look at the distance I've traveled here. This is unbelievable. I never thought I could actually become better on any front, and you'll prove it to yourself. And that's like lifting weights. That's mental lifting weights, where you're like, I can change. I got the power to change. I would get down, I push myself back off the ground. That's an exercise. You get strong and you get good at doing that. You build some big muscles on falling down and pushing up, knocking yourself down, or someone knocks you down, push yourself back up. Repetitive sort of exposure to that exercise is going to make you really strong mentally. So start with that book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Work on your physical pillar. I would contact Nathan. Beyond that, or even to don't forget, Nathan can take 30 years of research and put it into a couple weeks. You can take some big shortcuts and it'll be lots of fun, and you get where you want to go really, really fast, because Nathan has access to this library, this reprogramming library that I made myself, where we're just going to stick a cassette deck, a tape inside your subconscious and tell it exactly what to do. So Nathan has access to that. I just tell people, look, you want to accelerate, talk to Nathan. Absolutely.
Thanks, mate. That was a really awesome chat. People know where to find you, Jason. They can email you at info@jchristoff.com. Is there anywhere else they can find you? Facebook, Instagram?
They can find me on various social media channels, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, can't really tell the truth there. Really hardcore. It's better just to email me personally. I'll just put you on my email list, and then I'll give you information that'll blow your hair back a little bit, so that you can understand what you're really dealing with here. You're dealing with a very old group that knows how to use that psychological manipulation tactic, and they're not trying to make you bigger, stronger, faster, like the $6 million man. They're trying to make you dumber, slower, and poor. That's what they're trying to do.
Thank you for jumping on today, Jason. That was an awesome chat. You saw something in me 2 years ago when I was in my shittiness. You saw my potential, and to be able to then now replicate that into my coaching and see other people's potential. I thank you so much for everything that you've done for me in the last 2 years. So I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't have done your program, and then have our one-on-one sessions. You don't really do much anymore. That was a really special session. That first one was so special because you saw something in me. I mean, I'll never forget it. You said I had a beacon of light just steaming through me. I was just, I couldn't see that though. But like looking back on that session only recently, it's like now I can see that, and I can see that in others as well. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was definitely there, Nathan. You've done really well, and I love your work. So
thanks so much. All right. This has been the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. See you guys again real soon. I'll get Jason back on probably 12 months' time, when he's probably, who knows where he's in 12 months' time. And that's the most exciting thing. So thank you, Jason.
Joe Rogan Show. That's the goal. Joe Rogan Show.
You'll get there. All right. See you guys. Catch you soon.